Welcome to New Stripe City, a podcast with diehard Bengals fans. I am your host, Ace Boogie. What's going on? It's been a while, man. Been a while. How you guys doing today? As usual, I'll start this off with making sure that you guys subscribe, check me out, New Stripe City. Obviously, we do this for the fans. Um, so, let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, I want to talk about some of the moves that the Bengals made. Most notably, they made the move of bringing in Cordy Glenn. I talked about that a little bit on my last episode that I had. And obviously, the Bengals bring in a guy like Cordy Glenn, who's very good, a premier tackle, a left tackle, definitely fulfilled a need. But that wasn't the only thing. That's what they did to kick off free agency. Well, actually, free agency kind of started a little bit before that with the signing of Chris Baker, which I also broke down on my channel. So if you haven't seen that, make sure you check that out. But Chris Baker started off free agency and filled an immediate need that the Bengals had at defensive tackle. Although we all love Andrew Billings, he just didn't measure up last year. He simply just did not live up to it. I'm not sure if it was more of a injury thing with him coming back from a knee injury from the year prior. I mean, we saw the same thing kind of happen with Geno Atkins. So maybe this year he takes that step. But this was a decision that the Bengals made, and it looks like this is kind of a new attitude that they're taking with guys who aren't where they want them to be necessarily. Cedric Ogbuehi, another example of that, like I touched on before, is Cordy Glenn. So now you bring a guy like Chris Baker in that fortifies that defensive line, which is what defensive coordinator Terrell Austin said was his first mission with this defense, is to stop the run. So that could continue in the draft. We'll touch on the draft a little bit as well. I think one of the best signings for this free agency period was re-signing Tyler Eifert and retaining him. According to some of the Bengals contingent in the media, it looked like he actually had offers from San Francisco and also Los Angeles. We kind of figured Los Angeles would be in the mix just because Hugh would be the guy. I mean, not Hugh, but Whitworth would be the guy kind of campaigning for him to come there, and that's exactly what happened. And then the fact that the 49ers were kind of a dark horse could mean that he actually received more money on the open market. So the fact that he came back was huge, right? Because this team without Tyler Eifert, you could definitely make the argument that Mohamed Sanu and Marvin Jones were definitely key losses, and the offense hasn't been the same. But it really hasn't been the same without Tyler Eifert. He was the main reason that they kind of let those guys go, right? So we get Tyler Eifert back, and we get him on a great deal. I mean, they didn't have to put much guaranteed money up, but then they also made it fair for Eifert so that if he does meet any of the perks of his contract, he'll actually get paid up to $8 million, maybe even more over $8 million. I'm not sure. I'm not a cap specialist, but a great deal, a proven deal, and it's cool to see a guy like Tyler Eifert that wanted to stick around, that wanted to show some loyalty to the fans, and wanted to be there. And I think it's great, and it shows how much the culture has changed in Cincinnati. And even with the Bengals having 2 rough seasons, Tyler Eifert decided to stay, and I think he realizes that him being gone out of this offense has definitely had a huge impact on that. One thing that's interesting, though, that was floating out there that Marvin Lewis said is that he's expecting Bill Lazor and this offense to figure out creative ways to keep him healthy. And that's smart. I mean, why have a guy like Eifert out there blocking majority of the game? I mean, honestly, when you look at the tight end position in general, it's a position that tends to have a lot of guys that are injured, right? So, I mean, some people get frustrated with Eifert, but it comes with the territory, right? These guys are asked to not only block, but also be receivers. Wide receivers in the NFL usually tend to get injured a lot of the time anyway, and you're asking this guy to block and catch the ball. And he's had his history of shoulder injuries, labrums, things of that nature. So I'm not really surprised because you can look around at a guy like Gronk who considered retirement this year, and you can also look at a guy like Jordan Reed with the Ravens. I mean, not the Ravens, but the Redskins. I mean, this guy when he plays, he's a monster, but Jordan Reed has not been healthy. Like, he's been almost in the same predicament. So Eifert is big, and I think the creative way that Marvin Lewis mentioned, I think, is getting guys like Tyler Kroft out there more often. You're talking about Tyler Kroft. You're talking about CJ Uzoma. Utilizing those guys. I mean, Kroft had a big year last year. And that was probably the only silver lining in Eifert being hurt these last couple of years, is the fact that Tyler Kroft can now step in and be productive. He showed it last year. Why not have him get some more plays in this year? And then you bring Eifert in around the red zone and the mid to intermediate field. There's no reason to use Tyler Eifert as a blocker, in my opinion. Huge retaining there by the Bengals, especially after a year that they lost both Zeitler and Whitworth. They retained their Pro Bowl tight end, so we have to be happy about that. That was definitely dope. Moving on, Preston Brown, a huge signing. Huge, man. I really wanted to talk about this signing. Everybody obviously was already talking about it. I really wanted to wait to touch on it to formulate my opinion, and I'm so glad that the Bengals were able to pull this off. You're talking about a guy that's just like us, a fan, a lifelong, diehard fan of the Cincinnati Bengals, grew up in Cincinnati. Basically a godsend for us because this dude just dropped into our laps and he was basically waiting to pounce on the opportunity to fulfill one of his dreams. I mean, me as a fan, one of my lifelong dreams has always been to have a position with the Bengals, right? And I work in the IT world. That's one of the reasons why I haven't been on for a long time, but I kind of work in analytics, and my dream is to actually work in analytics for the Bengals and help them out as a fan. So this guy is living out his dream on a large scale, and he's a guy that led the league last year in tackles. It doesn't get much better than that. We've had nobody, literally nobody around Tez, and that's not to discredit any of the other guys. That's just to say that they haven't matched the intensity that he has. They haven't matched the impact that he has, and you can tell when Tez isn't in the game, there's a huge difference. So to have a guy like him on the defense, like a Preston Brown that played nearly, I believe, every snap according to Dave Lapham, is great. You have to have that on defense. You have to have those enforcers at the linebacking position. And if they want to do what Terrell Austin is saying that he wants to do on defense, which is to first stop the run, and that leads to turnovers and things of that nature, it's great to have a guy like Preston Brown in there. Also, another key retaining is the Bengals bringing back Huber. The Bengals have been very aggressive this offseason, and I have to give the kudos to Marvin Lewis and his coaching staff, Duke Tobin, for going out, getting out of their comfort zone, and doing their thing. They went and grabbed a guy like Preston Brown that's 25, in his prime, still signed him, was a need. I mean, they attacked a lot of different things. They went out and brought in a Cordy Glenn who, had a huge contract. Not now since the market has been reset after free agency, but still was a sizable contract for them to bring in. They bring in a guy like Cordy Glenn, and now they're ready to make some prime moves. And this was one of the things, I have to give Marvin Lewis his credit, this is one of the things that he said that they wanted to get better at, right? They wanted to get better at free agency, and yeah, they didn't make the huge splashes like a Sue. Hey, I know. My son is crying because the Bengals didn't sign Eric Reed yet. Hopefully that'll be another addition. But the thing is, I'm looking for what they're going to do in the draft. This is probably the best free agency offseason that the Bengals have had in a while. I mean, honestly, it might be the best that they've ever had. And you can tell that they've taken a lot of time, and they're using a different strategy this time and going after key guys. And it seems like they're doing certain things that they kind of do during the draft process during free agency. They didn't overpay for guys. They made calculated decisions. They went after guys with low bust potential in terms of free agency. So I liked what they did there. Give me 1 second. I'm about to hop in the chat. I know we have a couple of people in the chat. I'm glad to see that you guys are still holding on. Like I said, I know it's been a while since I've been on, but I had to come and talk to Who Dey Nation, man. I was actually playing with one of the fans of the channel the other night in Fortnite, and he was like, man, you got to drop something. So let me go ahead. I know you guys have got some questions, so I'm getting in here. How do you feel about the Bengals looking at Doris Fountain. To be honest with you, I think he's a safety, but I'm not sure exactly how good he is. I'd like to probably do a little bit more research. Oh, it looks like he's wide receiver. Wide receiver out of North Iowa. I'm not surprised that the Bengals are looking at receivers, right? Because to me, they still haven't solidified that core. So I think anything's on the table. I'd have to look more into Fontaine, and I'm still going to be working on Prime this year for you guys who are familiar with Prime, my kind of Bengals draft tendency predictor. Not exactly who they're going to pick, but who they most likely would be looking at, and that would go off of certain aspects of the Bengals and tendencies that they've had in the past. So, yeah. Awesome person says Billy Price. Billy Price is an interesting topic for me. We've been with a lot of guys with torn pecs. I mean, you talk about William Jackson III. You talk about John Ross III. I don't know if I want to take another guy in the first round injury. And it's serious, right? We're talking about a guy who's playing center. And, of course, we're going to hear now that guys are good to go because agents don't want this guy's draft stock to fall. So, of course, they're going to sell us. He's good to go. Billy Price. The only reason I pass on Billy Price is because of that torn pec, man. I don't want to go through a third year of a guy with a pec injury, right? William Jackson III wasn't able to play. John Ross barely was able to play last year. Although Billy Price is a pretty good center, I'm not sure if he's worth that, right? I'm not sure if he's like a can't-miss prospect. If we're talking about somebody like Quentin Nelson, if Quentin Nelson has a pec injury, a guy that could go in the top 5, sure, you take him. But I don't think Billy Price is that guy, right? I think he's either a late first to early second round prospect. So I'm not sure, awesome person. I don't think that I would do it personally, but we'll see. But the Bengals really haven't been that high on Ohio State players for whatever reason. It's either that they're not too high on them or they just haven't fit into what they're simply looking for. Derwin James, man, Derwin James would be a dream, but unfortunately, I think he's probably gone by the time it gets to 21, right? I'm not expecting him to be there. It was honestly a reach that he'd be there at 12, right? It wasn't guaranteed that he would be there. He could go as high as I think it's 7 to Tampa Bay. This is a guy that's a generational kind of athlete. Now he's not a ball hawk. He's not like a super ball hawk, but there's so many things that you can do with the guy. He can play linebacker. He can play in at the slot corner. He's big enough to cover those tight ends, everybody in the NFL. He's a huge weapon, and he checks off all of those boxes. So I don't expect him to be at 21. The only way I see the Bengals possibly taking a chance on him is if he makes it to 15, like Young Bobby said. Maybe they try to trade up to get him. I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's see. Let's see what else is in here in the chat. Some people have said, Young Bobby is saying that he heard Bengals say that some of them like defensive D linemen at 21st overall. I could really see that. You're talking about a draft where the cornerback class is not that strong. It's actually one of the weakest parts of this class, and it's very top heavy, right? So if a guy like Josh Jackson is sitting out there, you might have to take him just because there aren't really many good corners. You have Darqueze Dennard, who's up next year. I would think, though, that the Bengals could try to figure out a way to make a Darqueze Dennard deal happen. Maybe he ends up staying. It's kind of hard to say. I mean, honestly, I'd probably lean towards 65%, and this is a year in advance. I'd probably say there's a 65% chance that Darqueze Dennard is going to leave, right? They had to convince him to actually. Marvin Lewis, basically, an article came out, I think it was Hobson, that Marvin Lewis had to sell him on playing nickel corner and the value of nickel corner. But the good thing is that the nickel corner position is now being valued in the NFL, right, by other teams. You're seeing it now in free agency and how important that position is, especially with guys choosing to go and play out in 3 wide. So, corner, I'd never say, awesome person, that corner isn't a possibility, being that this team has picked a corner at the 21 spot how many times? Darqueze Dennard, I believe Drake Kirkpatrick. It's kind of hard to say. They could do it. Rory says that I could get on board with that. I think whatever the Bengals do, I'll get but I'll go ahead. Let me go ahead and finish these. Do you think drafting a QB as says young Bengal? I'm not sure if it's out of the question. I don't think that they could address it as early as we initially thought, especially with them signing a guy, and I can't believe I left him out of the free agency signings. But they signed Matt Barkley, and I think that means that he's definitely not a great NFL quarterback, but he's a good backup, and he's a guy that apparently Dan Horde on Bengals.com said that the Bengals had him rated as a second-round prospect when he came out. He's got some familiarity playing in the system that the Bengals are currently running. He played in Philadelphia with Laser, so maybe he's a guy that can do something. I think Lamar Jackson for now is out of the question, and the real reason I think Lamar Jackson is out of the question, I honestly think that the Bills could be making a play for Lamar Jackson in the draft. I think that's one of the main reasons that they traded up with us. So yeah. And Young Bobby asks, so is Derwin James better than Jabril Peppers? I think that Derwin James definitely is better than Jabril Peppers. He's not really a kick returner, so I could start there. But there's a lot that this guy can do, right? He can play linebacker, but I think that he's a better cover corner and a better cover guy or a better coverage safety than Jabril Peppers ever dreamed of being. So I think that he's definitely better than Jabril Peppers. There's no question that he's going to be a great prospect. I mean, I recently moved to Orlando. I usually live in Tallahassee, so it was no country. They definitely were big on Derwin James, and one thing that I will say is some of his numbers don't tell the true story because he was hurt for one of the last seasons he had there, and then he also played for a defensive coordinator that was trash. So I think that if he gets with a guy like Terrell Austin, he's going to bring some of those things that we need out of him. And I think that he would be a great weapon on defense. You know, I hear a lot of guys say, and I don't understand because I respect most of fans' views, but I don't see how there are some of these guys championing Sean Williams, like guy is really good. I mean, he's not bad. He's not bad, but he's just not Reggie Nelson. And you've seen for the last 2 years that the safety position has not really been productive. I like George Iloka, but George Iloka is playing out of position simply because Sean Williams cannot play free safety. He's not a great coverage corner. Outside of that one interception he had years ago in a contract year against the Steelers, he's really not great in coverage. I've seen him blow a ton of coverage plays, man, and he's just not that good. So I definitely think safety is on the board, but you're talking about a year where there are a lot of safeties out there. Who do they want? I think Derwin James would be – I think they'd love to have Derwin James, but they're realistic about it. Is he really going to be there? Who knows? So they could definitely – I definitely expect them to address safety, bro. Let me just put it like that. Because you don't bring in I can't recall the guy's name now, but he signed with the Saints. I think it was Kurt Coleman or something like that. You don't bring a guy in like that if you're satisfied with the safeties that you have. And that's one of the components of what Terrell Austin does the best is having that ball hawking safety that can get those turnovers. And just to drop some gems out there, if you guys have been following on Twitter, Terrell Austin actually met with Derwin James before his pro day workout. So I'm not sure if he is there. And that's the thing, man. Like with these safeties, you never really know where they're going to go, bro. You never really know where they're going to go. Like you could either have Eric Berry, Earl Thomas kind of guy, or you could have a guy like Landon Collins that slept on and falls. And Derwin James kind of falls in the middle of that, right? Because technically I think he's supposed to be a strong safety, but he has free safety qualities. But at the same time, he's also not like a Malik Hooker who came out last year, or Eric Berry or Earl Thomas that are those ball hawk types. So there is a chance that he could be there, but I'm just not going to bank anything on it. Let's see. Hernandez. Hernandez is cool. I wouldn't mind Will Hernandez, but I think you're talking about a guy that's more likely a guard. And I think right now, sure they could sign a guard, but I think that they have bigger needs out there for right now, man. We'll have to see, but I think right now they have bigger needs. I wouldn't be mad with Will Hernandez. I think he's a possibility. But yeah, I think that's cool. Young Bengals is I'm not understanding why people are having the Bengals taking wide receivers in this year's draft. That's their last need. Um, so I agree with you on the first round part. But I think they're definitely going to be open to wide receivers. I have to disagree with you on that because when you look at the Bengals wide receivers for the last I don't know how many years, who can you definitively say has been a solid weapon aside from AJ Green? You really can't. You really can't. And it's the same premise that the Bengals have taken with the safety position, it looks like, with the linebacking position, it looks like, also with the defensive tackle position. You're waiting for these guys to evolve and step out, but why hinge all of your bets on one of these guys coming out? I mean, if they don't, what would be the harm in the Bengals taking a guy in the second round or the third round? To me, I don't really think that there is harm. I don't think that it's a super strength, but I don't think that it's something that isn't considered a weakness. I could see them taking a receiver. Oh yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. So you're saying you don't think that it's our last need, but it's certainly not our top priority. I agree with you on that. I think top priority, like we all know, is offensive line. So Young Bengal finally asked a question that I wanted to give you guys my thoughts on, and it's who. Oh, my bad. It's not the question I thought. You said who do I want to draft 21st overall? Honestly, I would want Derwin James, but that's not really a realistic one. If Vita Vea is there, I wouldn't mind taking him. I know that sounds kind of crazy because you have Andrew Billings, you have Chris Baker, but why not take a guy like Vita Vea? I mean, honestly, like you could still. Billings is a guy, I know they put weight on him, but he's a guy that's been able to kind of rush the middle of the line a little bit. At least in college he showed that. Why not have him back up Geno? I mean, why not? You also have, I can't remember the guy from Michigan, but he actually was better than Billings, so I wouldn't mind taking Vita Vea there, man. Vita is a beast. Just like Roy said, he's a beast. So why not improve the defensive interior and take it right there? Who do I think they'll actually take at 21? That's a different question. And it's going to be a name that some people don't like. But I think that, and I talked to, what up, Pharaoh? I talked to Pharaoh about this. I think that people need to realize that the Bengals could take Orlando Brown. I mean, how can I sell this for you guys, right? It sounds a lot similar, and this is my thing. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, the guy had a horrible combine, but the combine is not what matters in the NFL. You know, it does to some teams, but to anybody who's played football and anybody who's up on football knows that it's all about film, right? Film is where guys get evaluated, right? I don't care that this guy benched 225 16 times, right? I care more about the fact that the guy gave up no sacks in college. I care more about the fact that the guy is 6'8", 345 pounds. You're talking about a guy in Orlando Brown that is a mauler that you can throw in day one. I'm not sure how the scheme fit is, but I'm talking about a guy day one that you can throw on the other side of Cordy Glenn. That is a guy that will definitely be key to our running game, and it's a guy that I could see them taking. A lot of people were talking a few weeks ago about why is Marvin Lewis at, the Oklahoma Pro Day? Is he looking at the quarterback? In my head, I'm like, no, he's looking at Orlando Brown, the right tackle, one of the top tackle prospects. Whether he had a bad combine or not, this guy's getting taken in the first round. And I think 21 is definitely a spot where that would be a great place for him to be at. I mean, you're talking about a guy that originally before the combine was being mocked in the top 15? You take him there. He's the son of an NFL prospect that Marvin Lewis coached. There's already a relationship there, right? So I think that the Bengals could take Orlando Brown. Right now, I'm saying that the Bengals are going to take Orlando Brown at 21. If he's there, You heard it here first. They're going to take Orlando Brown. That's who I think that they're going to take. So let me see. Let me jump back in here. Okay. I know that that's going to be controversial. Somebody said Marcus Hurst, Harold Landry. Yeah, those guys could be options, but I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's see. I don't think Brown is going to be taken in the first. I mean, honestly, Roy, you're talking about a guy that just doesn't grow on trees, right? You don't have a guy like Orlando Brown that's 6'8", 345 that just grows on trees out there. This guy gave up 0 sacks. And I hear people talk about Mike McGlinchey all the time, but this is the thing. First of all, Mike McGlinchey isn't too big. Let me pull up his draft profile before I just talk out of the side of my neck. But I thought I remember saying that Mike McGlinchey, or maybe it wasn't Mike McGlinchey, maybe it was the kid from Texas. Let's see, Mike McGlinchey. But one of the things that I always hear about Mike McGlinchey is that the guy struggles with athleticism. Well, in the NFL, buddy, that's what every edge rusher is going to be. Do I want to take that guy that struggles against athleticism, or do I want to take a guy that's a brick wall? I'm going to take the guy that's a brick wall. 6'8", 312. So he's very tall, but 312 is kind of small for a right tackle. They'll probably have him put on some weight. I wouldn't be mad with McGlinchey, but I don't know, man. When you look at the NFL draft, if you go to the NFL.com draft profiles, which I'm not saying that I'm a scouting professional or anything like that, but when you look at what they have in terms of their grades, I believe they have Orlando Brown as a higher graded draft. Hey, don't get mad. Don't get mad, man. That's my son. But I think they have Orlando Brown graded higher, right? So, I mean, some guys aren't workout warriors. I'm not really expecting a guy that's 6'8", 345 to be a workout warrior. I might be wrong, but I think Orlando Brown is going to be a good prospect, man. I think he's going to be good. Like Cedric Ogbuehi gave up a whole bunch of sacks when he was a prospect coming out. So this is what NFL.com says. They have Orlando Brown graded as a 6.1. They have Mike McGlinchey graded at a 5.8. So you can hear all these guys talking all of this trash and saying that McGlinchey is this great prospect and all of that. They even have this. They're saying that this guy is going to go round 1. And this is the bottom line. And this is what I said. This is what my argument was. A tackle with rare size and length whose massive framework can work for him in pass protection and against him in the run game. I don't think the run game is going to be an issue because I think that we'll have a guy like Frank Pollock that can work with him on that. But the biggest thing that we need is pass blocking. Honestly, our running game wasn't great, but our pass blocking was way more of an issue than our run blocking, I think, in my opinion. I think they both were trash, but I think that we're more worried about keeping Andy Dalton upright. And I think with the new zone scheme that Orlando Brown would probably fare pretty decent in. I'm not going to say he's good because obviously he's not athletic, but he's definitely a guy that's going to end up being taken in the first round, in my opinion, just from what I've seen. I don't get caught up in the whole combine stuff, especially for a lineman. Like, you got guys, it's pretty ridiculous that guys are like Matt Miller, right? And kind of have a love-hate relationship with Matt Miller. I don't know if Matt Miller's ever played football before. Maybe he has. But you're breaking down offensive lineman 40s, bruh. You're criticizing. I don't care what a lineman ran in the 40. He's never running 40 yards downfield. Can you block people and not get the quarterback sacked? That's all I care about. So, didn't mean to go on a tangent, but yeah, I think Orlando Brown, I think he's going to be the pick, bro. I think he's going to be the pick. But if you guys don't have any more, man, my son seems like he's pretty upset. I'm going to wait a few more minutes, stick around just to see if you guys have any more questions. Not really a Bengals question, but what are your thoughts on Josh Allen, young Bengals? I don't know, bro. I'm kind of torn. I feel like Josh Allen is overrated, personally. That's just my opinion. I think he's kind of overrated. Sometimes guys get caught up in the physical tools, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But I think the NFL does this every year, where they overrate guys that are 6'4", 240, and can throw the ball 60 yards down the field. All of a sudden, the guy that was average in college is supposed to come into the NFL and be this all-pro quarterback. Um, that's not to say that Josh Allen will be a bust. I just don't think that he'll live up to the selection. Like, if he's the second quarterback taken, I don't know if they want to do that, bro. Like, for me, I'd rather hinge my bets on Lamar Jackson than Josh Allen. I'll just put it like that. I don't think this is a strong draft class for exterior line. That's why I love the Glenn trade, Rory. I definitely agree with you on that. In terms of interior line is strong, but exterior line, you're spot on. It's not really that strong. Any available free agents other than Reed that you still think should be picked up by us? I don't know, man. I'd have to actually look at the remaining list of free agents out there. I think the Bengals would actually have a chance picking up Eric Reed, and I'll tell you why. Is because back when he was drafted, there was a rumor going around that the Bengals really wanted him, and the 49ers jumped up and took him from us. So I think he should be a guy that you should try to bring in, and you can get a top flight safety in the NFL for great value right now. You're talking about this is what, the second week of free agency? But let's see. You said anybody other than Reed. So right now I'm pulling up the remaining free agents right now. Let's look through this list of possible. These are all guys no one wanted, right? Okay. So you have Carlos Dansby. We've been there, done that. He's too old. Ladarius Gunter, Junior Gillette. Pac-Man, I think, has a chance of coming back. I think that don't rule out the whole Pac-Man thing. Wide receiver Jordan Matthews, I don't really think you want him, bro. I mean, what does he really give you other than youth that Brandon LaFell doesn't already give you now? Let's see. Who do you think, Moody? You know, I think that means that the people that are left are trash. So I'm just gonna go out there and say that it's gonna be Pac-Man Jones, bro. I think Pac-Man Jones is a guy that we could bring back. He posted some stuff on Instagram, like talking about how he was in the airport going somewhere, but I don't think he's gonna get the offers that he really wants, man. Do you think that the Bengals should try to reach for Odell Beckham? I wouldn't say that it's a reach, bro. I wouldn't say that it's a reach. I think getting him is a reach just because of the fact of how the Bengals kind of do everything, how they kind of situated, especially after the Cordy Gillen trade. I think it's almost a wrap on that. You're talking about a guy that wants to become one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL, and they're talking about 2 first-round picks that you had to give up for this guy. He's an amazing talent. He's an amazing receiver. Some people consider him better than AJ. I think that him and AJ are 1A and 1B. I don't think that the Bengals are going to do it, bro. It's just too much draft capital for them to put out there. They've already invested so much in the position, so I don't think that they're going to do it. Heavenson Assassin, I kind of touched on the Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews, bro, he just doesn't really do much for me, man. He's been with the Eagles. From what I remember with his time with the Eagles, he really was a guy that wasn't. I think he can only play in one position, so he's not even that flexible when it comes to that. But yeah, he's all right, but I don't see it. Bobby Hart, bro. I don't know if I agree with you on that, Pharaoh. I don't know if it's Bobby Hart was kind of trash, bro. Maybe he'll be better with us. I'm not saying that he's gonna end up being trash still, but for the Giants, he really wasn't that good. Let's see. Yeah, it's okay to dream. Do you think that we should keep LaFell? I mean, it really kind of depends, man. It really kind of depends. I was kind of shocked that they decided to keep him. If they wanted to get rid of him, that they could have. They decided to keep him, and I mean, I don't have a problem with that. You have to keep what you know. His contract isn't guaranteed, though. I think it's only $1 million that's guaranteed now. So we'll see. But I think that they'll end up keeping LaFell on board. But yeah, man. Yeah. I'm looking at this game. I'm actually letting the play itself in the background, and it looks like we just don't win on this. I don't know. Madden has it out for us or what. Oh, let's touch on the test thing. The test thing is just kind of frustrating, bruh. I don't think that it's gonna be something that leads to them getting rid of him. Uh, but it's just kind of frustrating to always spend the first 3 to 4 games without him, right? I just don't know if we can really depend on him as a leader that's dependable. We got to be able to depend on you. So we'll get a lot of looks at Preston Brown. One guy that I'm thinking of keeping my eye on this upcoming season is Jordan Willis, bro. I think Jordan Willis is a guy that you have to look at. It's cool that Chris Smith left because that opens the door for Jordan Willis to get on the field, and he didn't play too bad last year. He just didn't have the whole spark that Lawson had. Carson. Will John Ross have 600 yards or over this season? It depends if he can stay healthy. If John Ross stays healthy, I think he has 600 yards. I think that we have to get him on the field. Young Bengal, do you think Shaquem Griffin would be a good fit to the team in like the third? This is my thing, man. The Bengals, they don't really like guys, and this is nothing against Shaquem Griffin. I live in Orlando, so they talk about him all the time. I don't think it's gonna be the fact that he doesn't have a hand that keeps him off the team. I think it's his size, right? We're talking about a guy that's only 220 pounds, and he had to put on weight to make that. He's more of the size of a safety, so I wouldn't be surprised if they took him, but it's just not their typical body type that they kind of look for. And if you've ever just researched the Bengals, they are really big on guys being a certain size. It always sometimes kind of hurts them. Jordan Evans, I think they already feel like they have that. I think they feel like that's their Shaquem Griffin. He's not as fast, obviously, but he is still pretty fast. Farrell says that he said Denard was a sleeper this year. Yeah, Denard was balled out last year. I have to give it to him. Maybe they play Josh Shaw possibly at safety. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna talk y'all heads off, man. I appreciate you guys stopping by, bearing with me. Definitely be sure to check me out. And as usual, I leave this with a who day, all day, every day, and especially on Sunday.